But on 43, he too was beaten for pace by Patterson. England was 71 for 2. Any chances of saving this match are fast disappearing.
England skipper David Gower as things went from bad to worse.
Walsh into Gower. He's bowled him. Off stump, beautiful delivery from Walsh, and Gower goes off. Very disappointed.
Captain, this ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship, or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know. We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa.
We came out with such high hopes anyway, and we thought we'd start competing from the start of the series and give them a good fight. And you find that, well, okay, we now are staring down a gun barrel again. And that's very disappointing for me as much as anyone else, or probably more than anyone else. And I know that, okay, you can be as relaxed and laid back as possible. Relaxed and laid back as you like. Underneath, it still gets through to you.
There's an old saying in cricket that it's the easiest thing in the world to captain a winning side. The real test of a skipper is to keep morale high and the team together when you're losing. And out here in the Caribbean against the best side in the world, David Gower's team is losing.
Ever since David Gower's side arrived in the West Indies, they've had problems off the field as well. Anti-apartheid demonstrations in Trinidad were just one source of worry to the side, as if playing cricket against Viv Richards' team wasn't enough.
Gower, Lamb, both of them.
It's the second time David Gower has led England in a series against the West Indies, and he's yet to win a test against them. This tour of the Caribbean is as severe a challenge as Gower can expect as a captain.
Heads.
Gower calls heads.
Looks like heads. I think we all know what's going to happen next.
The hammering England are taking in this series is largely due to fast bowling. The West Indies' fearsome pace attack has overwhelmed England so completely that it's difficult to see how the batsmen can ever cope with the constant barrage in a test match.
You don't like them being a better side. I think that's a fairly clear emotion. I think one has to accept, and I accept, that if a side is playing better than your side, then you're likely to lose. I mean, you've got to play very well out here to win. I think everyone accepted that before we came out, and I think everyone at home knows that in order to win out here, we've got to play very, very well.
We've only got 12 fit, yeah. We're effectively selecting from 12 now.
Correct.
Selecting a side to take on the fast bowlers is another major headache for Gower.
We're basically on a holding operation.
His regular selection meetings with manager Tony Brown, assistant manager Bob Willis and other senior members of the side have been dominated by fitness reports from physiotherapist Laurie Brown.
Right, what time is the sick parade? I've just had it.
Injuries and sickness have plagued England on this trip, but it's Gower's job to keep morale high among his players.
Basically down what we've got: Gooch Robinson, Gower, Willie, Lamboth and Downton, Embry Edmonds, Foster Thomas, 12th.
Slack.
Go back to selecting from 12.
On paper, we are the second side. We are the weaker side of the two. Now, it doesn't stop us actually doing well. It doesn't stop us competing. And we have a certain amount of confidence and a certain amount of belief that we can do well, which is enforced, for instance, by winning the one day in Trinidad. And that sort of thing always helps morale, helps psychological feelings, gives people a boost.
That match has been England's one real success of the tour so far. That was mainly due to one man, Graham Gooch. Victory, but a rare one. In the main on this tour, the men in the press box have been reporting defeat after defeat.
After losing yesterday, is morale still fairly reasonable?
Yes, and I'm not worrying about that.
Like it or not, Gower has to answer their questions and criticisms at regular poolside press conferences.
Morale's not too bad at all. Once they've had a day on the beach, it'll help cheer them up.
Any doubt about Downton's place? Any question?
Not really. I mean, you can't really say that Fido's forced himself in with weighted runs. That would be the only way in. Because as far as I'm concerned, Paul's keeping has been fine.
Must be pleased with the way Gat looked this morning as well. Holding them back.
It is obviously a very important part of sort of the general PR of the sport, that we have to get on and be amiable with the press and they with us. Obviously they depend on information from us, we depend on them for publicity, for the coverage that we get. We like to keep them informed about teams, about possible teams for the next match, that sort of stuff, and who's in, who's out, who's injured, who's ill, whatever. And obviously the more information they get, the happier they are.
But on this tour, it's been the off-the-field activities of players, particularly Gower and Ian Botham, that have hit the news page headlines. Stories which have made the players fed up with Fleet Street. Relations between journalists and the team have never been worse.
Certainly in the private life, things do seem to have changed somewhat over the last few years in the way that press are interested in cricketers off the field. And I suppose Ian Botham, again, has to be the prime example of someone who attracts a large percentage of media coverage, and probably half his coverage is not about stuff he's doing on the field, but stuff he's doing off. And I think, myself now included, starting to find that people are taking an interest, a greater interest, in what I might be doing after hours than actually on the field, which is new, is a growing trend, which I can't say I'm entirely happy about.
How do you think you can cope with it?
I'm not sure there's much you can do about it.
If you're captain of England, young, great sportsman, good-looking, everybody wants to know about David Gower. Same as John McEnroe at tennis, and Ian Botham is the other one in this team. Now, David, I think, handles it very, very well, and he's had probably more flack on this tour than anybody as far as private life is concerned. But if, on one hand, he says, leave me alone, only talk about cricket, and then he signs a contract with just one newspaper to say what he wants to say, he's got to accept that the others are going to try and outdo the opposition. He can't suddenly say, I'm sorry, I'm not talking to you about anything, and then go off into a corner and speak to the man from his paper. They are pop star figures, and in the summer they're on television as much as EastEnders, Coronation Street, whatever you like to mention.
Do you accept that some of the tabloid papers perhaps overstep the mark sometimes?
I think sometimes, yes. I think one's got to put one's hands up and say yes.
Have things like the press coverage that David himself has received back home, has that depressed him, do you think?
I think it's annoyed him. I don't know that it's really depressed him. I mean, he's not that sort of character. I don't think David gets terribly depressed at any stage. He's usually a fairly lively person. I know he's a bit laid back, but he's quite lively and he's got a very sharp mind and very quickly can assess a situation. He gets things in perspective. So I don't think it depresses him, but I think it does greatly annoy him at times that these things do happen.
If people want to write, if the press are that interested, or the public are apparently that interested, that the press are going to write and fill pages with stuff that previously wasn't considered to be worth including, then obviously we have to accept it. There's not much you can do about it. I suppose the only thing you can do is make sure is either lock yourself away entirely when the game finishes and hope no one sort of opens the door.
Did you want that?
Another one. No, you'll be right. Stack them up.
As the captain, David Gower can't do that, and as a character, he wouldn't want to. Sociable and relaxed, Gower has made up his mind to enjoy the innumerable evening functions he and the team are bound to attend.
But it's a lovely hotel to stay because it's small and there's no fuss or anything, is it?
They can be enjoyed, and I suppose that the simple thing is if you say to yourself that you are going to enjoy it before you go out there, then you've got a better chance of doing so. If you go out thinking this is going to be a chore and a drudge, then the simple rule is then you probably won't enjoy it so much. And to be fair, when we do get a lot of invites, we don't accept all of them. We don't make it a three-line whip all the time. There are certain ones you cannot turn down, certain sort of government officials, local government officials that you have to go to out of respect and courtesy.
I'm very sorry to see you have that bad luck today.
So was I.
It kept low?
It's one of those things where if you go out on official business, as it were, then you are on show. You are on show as an ambassador of Britain again.
Right, but you oughtn't to have to play it.
Well, I know,
It's
but
bad wickets.
someone has to have one every game.
Do you do Francis Edmonds and Peter?
The players' wives and girlfriends are allowed to join the cricketers on tour for limited periods. Gower's fiancée Vicky is in Barbados, but doesn't get that much time to relax with him.
She will tell you, and the time is fairly limited. And take a day like today where we've had a selection meeting at lunchtime. I've then talked to the press for a while about it. You come through, have a bite of lunch, and we're going back later. We have to talk to the side about, say, tomorrow's match. And by the time we've done all that, there's a few hours in the afternoon left to relax, perhaps lie by the pool, perhaps go down by the beach. Just take, you know, literally 2 or 3 hours off to be together. And that is the routine, obviously, for most of the time we're playing. And I think that the wives have to accept that under sort of wartime conditions as we are now on tour, the boys are going to be away for most of the day and most of the days.
And preparing for the battle is another problem for Gower. A captain on any tour must still concentrate on his own personal form. Gower began this tour disastrously, but has gradually emerged from England's plight as one of the batsmen with some credit.
When you actually get out there, and especially against an attack like this, I mean, everything else tends to fade away. You don't have to worry about too many other things when you're batting here. Because if you're not actually just concentrating 100% on batting, then you're likely to come to grief in some sort of way. And for me, batting is just confidence from being at the crease, from feeling good, from playing well. And that really is the greater influence, say, on captaincy rather than the other way around. It's always a problem when things aren't going right for people. I mean, Ian's a good example on this tour because things haven't gone his way at all.
Indeed, for Ian Botham, the tour has been a personal nightmare, and that hasn't made life any easier for David Gower. Botham has been criticised in the press for his performance, and then on the eve of the third test came fresh allegations of drug taking.
Something happened? No.
And as the third test began, there was little respite for Botham from the West Indian batsman. England's prospects rapidly receding in the distance. Back home, the reputation of England's cricketers was reaching a new low, even in the city.
The West Indies' first innings were calling 440 to 460. England's a little lower than that. We're calling that 250 to 270. You buy £10 a run. Ian Botham's runs at 80, you're a patriot.
The fluctuating fortunes of the players have now taken their place alongside traditional gambling pursuits. An enterprising firm of stockbrokers specialising in sporting events now run a book on how many runs England will make. They're also taking side bets on that most volatile of commodities, Ian Botham.
And Botham hooks it in there, he's going to be out.
As England again chased a formidable West Indies target, expectations rose and then plummeted once more. In the end, it was a familiar story. English fans glumly looking on as wickets tumbled against the pacemen. England duly lost the match and the series. Can Captain Gower salvage some English pride on this tour?
You have to just get back and say every day is fresh. Somehow you've got to sort of get the guys going again. You've somehow got to pep them up and hope they can do it themselves largely. Because I say, there's not much you can do all the time, or there's nothing you can do all the time to just wind people up and set them out on the field. You just got to get 11 guys together, 11 guys working together, and if they play well together, that gives you a chance.
It's up to me to make our ODI to go back.